Chapter 1. The First Kiss. The first time I kissed Mike, his wife Emily was baking banana bread in the kitchen next door. The smell drifted over the fence, warm and familiar. I remember feeling guilty before anything had even happened. Mike and I met like any neighbors do, passing each other at the mailbox, exchanging short hellos, asking about the weather. Nothing special. He lived with Emily 2 doors down. She was quiet, polite. Mike was different. He talked more, laughed more, smiled like he meant it. He always asked how my day was going, and unlike most people, he listened to the answer. One Friday afternoon, I was watering my plants when he walked by with a grocery bag dangling from his arm. He waved. "You always make your garden look like a little jungle," he said. I smiled. "Better than looking dead." "True," he said, stepping closer. "You do all this by yourself?" I nodded. "Yeah. Helps me stay sane." We talked for 5 minutes. Then 10. He told me Emily was working late. I asked what was in the grocery bag. "Banana bread ingredients," he said. I promised I'd help her bake. I asked, "You like baking?" He shrugged. "Not really. But she likes it. So I will try." I didn't say anything. I just watched him. Then, one Saturday morning, everything shifted. I was walking out to get coffee when I saw Mike sitting on the curb. His head was low. He looked tired, not just physically but like something was weighing on him from the inside. "You okay?" I asked. He looked up, then looked away. "I just needed some air. Emily and I had a fight." I didn't know what to say, so I sat down beside him. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then he spoke. "Do you ever feel like you're just living someone else's life?" I turned toward him slowly. "Every day." He laughed quietly. "Exactly." We talked for an hour. About Emily. About him. About how things felt off but not broken. Just dull. He didn't say anything bad about her, just that he felt disconnected. Lost in routine. That conversation was like opening a door we hadn't realized existed. The next few weeks, we saw each other more. Not planned. Just small moments. At the mailbox. On walks. By the garden. Each time felt a little longer. A little closer. One afternoon, he helped me carry a heavy box into my living room. It wasn't big, just some books I ordered online. But the way he moved, so careful, so present, made my chest feel tight. He set the box down, looked at me, and then just stood there. I said thank you. He said no problem, and then he kissed me. It wasn't dramatic or messy. Just soft. Quiet. Careful. I pulled away first. "Your wife is baking banana bread right now." "I know," he said. And that was the beginning. We didn't plan the affair. It wasn't some thrill-seeking mission. It happened slowly, one tiny decision at a time. A walk turned into a hug. A hug turned into a touch. And then, a weekend in a small hotel downtown. Room 213. Nothing fancy. But it became our place. Each Saturday, we'd meet. Talk. Laugh. Touch. Sleep beside each other like we belonged. Like we weren't lying to anyone. He told me he loved me in that hotel room on a rainy evening when we'd just finished watching some old comedy on TV. I didn't believe it at first. I thought he was saying it because he felt guilty. Or because he wanted to make it all okay. But then he said it again. And again. And I started to believe it. "I want to leave," he said one night, tracing circles on my back. "Not just for you. For me. I want to live. Really live." That's when the idea of France came up. We didn't dream big, just small things. A quiet town near Lyon. A bakery on the corner. Morning walks to the market. Days without hiding. Nights without guilt. He said he could work remotely. I could start over, maybe teach English or open a bookstore, but none of this was real yet. Emily was still in the picture. Still baking banana bread, still waiting at home while Mike spent weekends in room 213 with me. There were moments when I hated myself. When I stared at the hotel's ceiling and wondered what kind of person I'd become. But there were also moments when I felt more alive than ever before. I wasn't sure which part of me was the real me. Chapter 2, Hotel Room 213. The first time we booked Hotel Room 213, I didn't even know how to feel. Nervous wasn't enough of a word. I felt like I was standing on the edge of something I wasn't ready to name. Mike had sent me a text that just said, Room 213. Saturday. Noon. That was it. No emojis. No see you there. Just instructions. I stared at my phone for half an hour before I replied, okay. The hotel wasn't fancy. It was tucked between a pharmacy and a small cafe. I drove past it twice before finally pulling into the parking lot. My hands shook as I turned off the engine. A part of me still wanted to go home. Another part had already decided not to. I walked in like I was just checking in for a work trip. The front desk clerk didn't ask questions. Maybe he didn't care. Or maybe he saw people like me often, women pretending they're here for something harmless. Room 213 was on the second floor. I walked slowly. Every step felt like a choice. When I reached the door, I knocked once. Mike opened it without a word. He looked calm. Too calm. Hi, I said. Hey, he replied. Then he let me in. The room was small. Beige walls. One bed. A mini fridge. The curtains were half closed, and the air smelled like cheap lemon cleaner. It wasn't romantic. But it was ours. He stood awkwardly by the bed. I put my purse down on the desk and sat in the armchair. I wasn't sure if you were gonna come, he said. I almost didn't, I answered. He nodded. Then sat on the bed. You wanna leave? I thought about it. Then said, no. There was a long silence. We didn't rush into anything. We just sat there, breathing in the guilt and the tension like it was part of the air. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I'm scared of what this means. Me too, I said. We looked at each other, and something shifted. It was like we had already crossed a line without realizing it. He reached out, touched my hand, and that was it. The next hour was slow, careful, quiet. We didn't talk much. But everything that happened between those walls felt heavier than words. We weren't just cheating. We were rewriting parts of ourselves. Afterward, I laid on the bed staring at the ceiling. Mike was beside me, one arm behind his head. You okay? He asked. I don't know, I replied. Are you? He didn't answer right away. I feel something I haven't felt in years. What's that? Alive. I didn't know what to say to that. We ordered sandwiches and ate them sitting side by side on the bed. No music. No distractions. Just us and the hum of the air conditioner. He told me more about Emily. That they hadn't been intimate in months. That she barely looked at him when he spoke. That she had dreams of her own but never included him. I'm not trying to paint her as the villain, he said. She's not cruel. She's just not here with me. I nodded. I didn't want to ask questions. I didn't want to push. Before we left the room, he looked at me and said, Can we do this again? I hesitated. Then nodded. Yeah. That became our pattern. Every Saturday, room 213. Different clothes, same feeling. Each time felt a little more dangerous. But also safer. We created a world in that room that felt more real than the one outside. Sometimes we'd just lay there, talking about nothing. TV shows. Music. places we wanted to visit. And sometimes we wouldn't talk at all. He brought me coffee one morning. It was raining. He said, "If this ends, I'll miss you every time it storms." I didn't reply. I just kissed him. Chapter 3. Emily's Banana Bread. Emily's banana bread was famous in the neighborhood. She baked it almost every Saturday, and the smell drifted down the street like clockwork. People loved it. She'd bring slices over to neighbors, always smiling, always polite. I started to hate banana bread. It wasn't the bread itself. It was a reminder. The smell would hit me around the same time I was getting ready to meet Mike at the hotel. That warm, sweet scent felt like a lie. Or maybe I was lying. Mike told me one day that Emily never ate the bread herself. She makes it for everyone else, he said. Never touch a slice. I asked why. He shrugged. She says baking relaxes her. But she's always tense. He didn't talk much about her at first. I didn't ask. It felt like a line I didn't want to cross. But then he started sharing small things. The way she folded his shirts without looking at him. The way she answered him with short, clipped words. Like she was saving energy for someone else. She's not cruel, he kept saying. She's just distant. One afternoon, I was walking past their house when I heard her laugh. It was rare. I hadn't heard her laugh since I moved to the neighborhood. Mike had just pulled into the driveway, and she ran out to help him with bags. She kissed him lightly on the cheek. I stood frozen on the sidewalk. Watching. It hit me all at once, this was her husband. Not mine. They had memories I wasn't part of. A house I didn't belong in. I felt like an intruder. That night, I almost cancelled our hotel meetup. But I didn't. Instead, I asked him about the kiss. She looked happy, I said. He rubbed his forehead and sighed. She tries sometimes. But it never lasts. I wasn't sure if that made me feel better or worse. Our weekend stayed the same. Hotel room 213. Shared sandwiches. Quiet talks. I started learning little things about Mike, how he liked his coffee black, how he rubbed his thumb when he was thinking, how he always left a towel on the floor. Small things that felt like pieces of him. One day, he brought me banana bread from his house. She made extra, he said, handing me a slice wrapped in foil. I stared at it. Seriously? I thought it'd be ironic, he said with a half smile. I put the bread in the fridge and never touched it. Emily started showing up more in our conversations. Not in a harsh way. Just as a shadow. Mike told me she was planning a trip to see her sister. 3 days, he said. You and me, no hiding. The idea scared me. I liked our bubble, the hotel, the hours we carved out together. It was safe in its own broken way. But 3 days. That was real. That was life. We spent those 3 days in a rented cottage an hour outside the city. It had a fireplace and a tiny kitchen. We cooked together. Sat on the porch. Pretended we were normal. He looked at me that second night and said, I could do this forever. I didn't reply. I didn't want to say I could too. Because forever isn't free. When we returned, everything felt heavier. Emily was back. Her banana bread smell returned. Mike looked tired again. We fell into silence in room 213. One Saturday, I asked, do you still sleep with her? He looked down. Not really. It's been months. Do you love her? He hesitated. I think I did. Not now. It should have made me feel chosen. But instead, I felt like the wrecking ball. I started noticing Emily more after that. At the grocery store. At the park. Always alone. Always composed. I wondered what she suspected. Or if she just chose not to look closely. Sometimes I felt like she knew. Not everything. But enough. Maybe she smelled it on his shirt. Heard it in the tone of his voice. Felt it in the spaces he no longer filled beside her. Maybe banana bread was her way of holding on. Of pretending she still had a home that wasn't cracked down the middle. I never spoke to her. Never looked her in the eye for more than a second. But every time I saw her, I remembered that first kiss. And the oven is warming next door. Chapter 4. How it felt to be chosen. Being chosen sounds romantic until you realize someone else wasn't. When Mike said I love you the second time, we were curled up in bed at the hotel. His voice was soft, almost unsure, like he wasn't just telling me, he was telling himself. I love you, he whispered into my hair. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe for a second. I whispered back, I love you too. We lay there in silence. His hand rested on my back, his thumb gently tracing circles. It felt warm. Right. Like maybe this mess we were in had some kind of heart in the middle of it. But the more he said it, the heavier it became. Being loved by someone who belonged to someone else isn't just complicated, it's lonely. You're the secret. The escape. The place he goes when the rest of his life feels too cold. He started telling me how he couldn't talk to Emily anymore. How every conversation felt rehearsed, like a script they were both tired of performing. She asks if I paid the gas bill, then walks away, he said one morning. Like that's all we have left. You have me, I said. He nodded. I know. Still, there were nights I'd lie awake wondering what they talked about when the door was closed. If she ever made him laugh the way I did. If her toothbrush still sat beside him in the bathroom. Probably. Being chosen meant knowing he wished he were somewhere else, but it also meant knowing he still walked back to her every night. He never promised me anything right away. No dramatic speeches. No talk of leaving her in the middle of the night. He said he needed time. Said it wouldn't be fair to just vanish. I tried to be patient. I told myself I was lucky he loved me. Out of all the women in the world, he chose me. But what does chosen mean when you only exist on weekends? At work, I started lying about everything. I told co-workers I was visiting my cousin. Or attending writing retreats. Nobody questioned me. I smiled, nodded, and stayed busy. Inside, I felt like I was splitting in half. One part was this woman Mike loved. The other part was a ghost walking through the rest of her life pretending nothing had changed. We tried staying light, joking about small things, watching silly movies in our hotel room, debating which country had the best pastries. But under all that, we both knew we were slowly unraveling. I think about you even when she's talking to me, he said one night. That's messed up, right? I think about you when I brush my teeth, I replied. We laughed. But it wasn't funny. Sometimes, I imagined what would happen if Emily found out. Would she scream? Cry? Leave? Or would she already know and say nothing? Mike said she wouldn't handle it well. She's built everything around routines. Breaking one might crush her. That scared me. I didn't want to be the reason someone's world collapsed. But I also didn't want to keep living as someone else's secret. I asked Mike once, do you ever feel guilty? He was quiet. Then said, every morning. But at night, when I'm with you, it fades. I didn't know what to do with that. We started talking more about France. He researched jobs that could be done remotely. I looked up small towns near Lyon with cheap rental homes. We planned without fully believing it would happen. Do you think we'll actually go? I asked one afternoon. I want to, he said. But wanting and doing aren't the same. He told me he was saving money quietly, building a small emergency fund just in case. It gave me hope. But it also made me feel like I was living 2 years ahead of reality. Every week, I waited for proof that things were moving. That being chosen meant more than hotel sheets and quiet whispers, and every week, I got just enough hope to stay. Chapter 5. The lie I told at work. The first lie was small. I'm going to visit family this weekend, I told my manager. She smiled and said, enjoy. And just like that, I created a cover. A life no one could question. That weekend, I met Mike in room 213 again. We brought snacks, watched old comedy movies, and pretended the outside world didn't exist. But it did. And it was starting to close in. The lies at work piled up faster than I thought they would. A friend's wedding. An out-of-town appointment. I'm house-sitting for a cousin. I didn't even have a cousin in town. I couldn't remember half of what I'd said anymore. Each time someone asked where I'd been, I had to pause. Think hard. Remember what version I gave them last. It scared me how easy it became. Mike was in the same boat. He told me he'd been making excuses to Emily, too. Business errands. Corporate meetings. Technical conferences she never bothered to confirm. He'd even printed fake itineraries once, just in case she looked. Do you ever feel like we're building a life on paper? He asked me one night. Every day. We both knew the danger. Lies get heavier the more you carry them. They spread. They demand attention. They grow. At work, I started getting questions. Not suspicious ones, just curious. Someone asked why I was missing every weekend lately. I laughed it off. Said I was finally getting around to that travel bucket list. One coworker jokes, "You must have a secret boyfriend out there." I smiled like it was nothing. But inside, I froze. Secret boyfriend. Secret life. Sometimes, I'd stare at my desk and wonder what I'd do if someone found out. What if a friend followed me one day? What if someone saw me and Mike walking out of the hotel together? The walls weren't safe anymore. They were thin. And I was starting to hear cracks. Mike started talking about Emily more often. Said she was getting distant again. Said she barely spoke at dinner. But he also said she'd started asking questions. She asked what hotel I stayed at during the conference, he said one afternoon. I didn't even mention a hotel. That made me panic. I told him we needed to be careful. He agreed. Still, we kept meeting. Room 213. The small comfort zone that was beginning to feel smaller by the week. I told another lie at work when they planned a company retreat. I said I had a family emergency. I didn't go. I couldn't risk being away from Mike that weekend. We were planning something important, looking at maps, visas, places in France where we could maybe disappear. You think they have places with little bookshops and coffee shops? I asked. He smiled. I think France is made of them. It helped. Talking about escape. It made everything feel possible, like our lies were just temporary bridges to something better. But reality didn't wait. One Monday morning, I forgot which lie I'd told. Someone asked if my cousin's cat was okay. I said, "What cat?" They blinked at me. I covered it with a laugh. Said I was tired. I wasn't tired. I was cracking. Mike was too. He started cancelling plans last minute. Said Emily wasn't feeling well. Said he had to stay home. One weekend, he never showed up at all. I waited in room 213 for 2 hours before I gave up and left. He texted later, "I'm sorry. I couldn't leave the house. She's watching me." It terrified me. Not just because Emily might know, but because Mike sounded trapped. The next time we met, I asked him, "Are we still doing this? Still going to France?" He looked at me long and hard. Then said, "Yes. But we need to be smarter." I nodded. But inside, I wondered, how long can we lie before we lose ourselves? I told myself this story would end with a cottage in Lyon. With freedom. With peace. But all I could see right now were the lies I kept planting. Like seeds I didn't want to grow. Chapter 6. A scar on his back. The first time I saw the scar, Mike was standing shirtless by the hotel bathroom mirror. It was long, faded, and curved near his shoulder blade. I hadn't noticed it before. I pointed to it gently. What happened? He turned slightly and looked at me through the mirror. I never told anyone about that. Not even Emily. I stayed quiet, sensing that this wasn't a story he told often. I was 14, he said, pulling a t-shirt over his head. My stepdad threw a glass ashtray. I tried to duck. The room felt still. That's horrible, I whispered. He nodded slowly. I used to say I fell off my bike. Said it so many times, I started believing it. He sat on the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees. You know what hurts more than the scar? I shook my head, pretending it never happened. I sat beside him, not saying a word. He leaned back, looking up at the ceiling like it had answers. Emily never asks about the past. We talked about dinner plans, groceries, work schedules. That's it. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to tell him that I cared. That I wasn't just here for the escape, we were something more. But it felt too soon, too big. We spent that afternoon wrapped in silence. Not uncomfortable, just reflective. Later, he asked me, "Do you think broken people deserve love?" I replied, "I think they need it most." He smiled, but his eyes didn't. We ordered Chinese food and ate with the TV playing in the background. No sound. Just flickering images. Mike rubbed his shoulder now and then, like he could still feel the pain. "This scar's not just on my back," he said. "It's everywhere. It's why I never feel safe." That night, he woke up around 3 a.m. I could feel his breathing shift. He sat up. "Nightmare?" I asked. "Yeah. Same one. I'm 13 again, trying to leave the house, but the door won't open." I reached for his hand. "You left. You made it out." He looked down. "Physically, yeah." The next morning, we didn't talk much. He seemed distant, like his past was still clinging to his skin. Before leaving the room, he turned to me and said, "I've never shown that scar to anyone before. I wanted you to see it." It wasn't just about the scar. It was about trust. About opening doors he'd kept locked for years. I started realizing that Mike wasn't just cheating on his wife. He was trying to become someone else. Someone he'd buried a long time ago. Emily knew the surface version of him. The guy who paid bills and mowed the lawn. I was getting the rest, the pain, the confusion, the stories he'd never told, and while it made me feel close, it also made me feel responsible. He trusted me with the parts that hurt. I wondered if I could carry them. Chapter 7. The first fight. The first fight started with a toothbrush. Mike showed up late to the hotel. I was already there, waiting in room 213 with takeout on the table and a headache building behind my eyes. When he walked in, he didn't kiss me. He dropped his bag, sat on the bed, and sighed. "I almost didn't come," he said. I blinked. "What does that mean?" "I mean, Emily asked me where I was going. She's asking more questions now. She's noticing things. Maybe she already knows," I said quietly. Mike didn't reply. We ate in silence. The food tasted like cardboard. Something felt off. He wasn't really present. He kept checking his phone, tapping the screen, staring at messages he wouldn't show me. After dinner, I handed him a travel toothbrush I'd bought. "You keep forgetting yours," I said, trying to lighten the mood. He looked at it like it was a loaded weapon. "That's kind of domestic." I didn't laugh. "Is that a problem?" "I don't know," he said. "Feels like we're pretending this is something normal. And it's not." He rubbed his face, tired. "It's real for me, but it's also messy. Complicated." I sat down across from him. "You say you love me. You talk about France. And now this is too domestic." Mike stood up and walked to the window. "I'm just overwhelmed." "That's not an excuse," I snapped. He turned, surprised by my tone. "You're angry." I nodded. Because I've been patient. I've changed my life for this. Lied for this. You walk in late and act like I'm pressuring you for giving you a toothbrush. He didn't speak. Then I said the thing that had been sitting on my tongue for weeks. Do you even plan to leave her? That changed the air in the room. Mike looked at me for a long time. Yes. I do. But it's not easy. I never said it was. You don't understand how much history is there. I understand how much of me is here. Right now. Waiting. His voice cracked a little. I'm not using you. I know, I said. But sometimes it feels like you're saving me for later. Like I'm the life you want when it's convenient. That hurt to say, but it was true. He sat back down. Took my hand. I want you. Not just weekends. All the time. I swear. But you go home to her, I whispered. He closed his eyes. I hate it too. We didn't talk much after that. He stayed the night, but the silence was thick. Not angry. Just tired. In the morning. He left early. No breakfast. No kiss goodbye. I stared at the toothbrush on the counter and wondered if trying to build a future from something broken was just setting myself up to fall. We didn't speak for 4 days. No texts. No calls. By Thursday, I sent a message. Are you coming Saturday? He replied hours later. Yes. I miss you. I didn't know what those words meant anymore. But I showed up anyway. That's how we were, two people tangled in something neither of us fully understood. A love built from stolen hours and quiet fights. And deep down, I knew the toothbrush wasn't the real problem. It was the symbol of everything we were pretending to be. A life half-lived. A promise half-made. Chapter 8. The plan to leave. We made the plan over cold pizza and lukewarm coffee in room 213. It wasn't just talk this time. Mike pulled out a folder. Inside were printouts, visa info, maps of small towns in France, job listings. He'd even circled one. Remote tech support for a startup based in Marseille. I can do this from anywhere, he said. They don't care where I live. I was stunned. Not because he'd printed things, but because it felt like a shift. A step forward instead of sideways. He laid out a calendar. If I give notice in July, we could be gone by September. I stared at it, trying to believe it was real. Are you serious? I asked. He looked at me, eyes steady. As serious as I've ever been. Part of me wanted to cry. Another part wanted to scream. All I'd ever wanted was for him to choose a life with me, not just weekends. And here he was, planning an escape. France felt like a fantasy before, something we'd whispered about between kisses and shared desserts. Now it was color-printed on hotel paper with ink that hasn't dried yet. We started talking about logistics. What to tell people. What to pack. Where to stay first. I have some savings, he said. Enough to get us settled. I nodded. I can start selling things. Furniture. Books. Maybe even my car. We built the plan like kids building a blanket fort, knowing it might collapse, but hoping it wouldn't. But with every detail came a shadow. Emily, she'll be hurt, Mike said one night. She'll be destroyed, I replied. You're not just leaving a house. You're leaving history. He nodded slowly. I know. But I can't live my whole life in guilt. I've lived in that house like a ghost. That word haunted me, ghost. Maybe I was one too. Floating through rooms I didn't belong in. Smiling at co-workers who didn't know I was packing up pieces of my life behind their backs. We made rules. No contact after we left. No return. No social media. We disappear, he said. Start clean. It sounded good on paper. Still, doubts crept in. What if you change your mind? I asked him one afternoon. I won't. You might. I'll swear it, if you need me to. I need more than words. He looked down. Then come with me. I'll prove it every day. We started looking at rentals near Lyon, cheap flats with tiny balconies and shuttered windows. I imagined mornings drinking coffee beside him, buying bread at the local market, learning French one mispronounced word at a time. It was almost too perfect. One Saturday, he brought me a small notebook. Inside were lists, things to do, places to visit, language phrases. On the cover, he'd written, "Our New Life." I held it like it was made of glass. "Why Lyon?" I asked. "It's quiet, beautiful, and far enough from everything else." I smiled. "We'll need warm coats." He laughed. "And patience." We kept planning, knowing the walls might collapse. But it felt good. Like we were building something real even if the foundation was cracked. I started sleeping better, breathing easier, hoping harder, but part of me still waited for the moment Mike would say, "I can't do it." That sentence lived quietly in my chest. Like a warning. Like a promise still waiting to be broken, because leaving isn't just an act. It's a decision that demands everything. And I didn't know yet if he had everything to give. Chapter 9, Emily's birthday. Emily's birthday fell on a Sunday. Mike told me about it the week before. He mentioned it quietly, like it didn't matter. "She wants dinner at that Italian place," he said. "I'll be home all day." I nodded, pretending it didn't sting. Saturday, he was with me in room 213. But it felt different. He was distant, quieter. I asked if he was okay. He said he was just tired. I didn't push. I already knew. We spent the afternoon half talking, planning little things, what to pack, how to close accounts. But it was like he was speaking through fog. At one point I said, "So, tomorrow, are you giving her a gift?" He nodded. "Bought her a sweater. Nothing fancy." "Did you write a card?" "No. Just the gift." I wanted to be supportive. I wanted to say it didn't matter. But I felt myself sinking. "You think she knows?" I asked. "I don't know," he said. "She hasn't said anything. But lately, she watches me more." That night, he left early. Said he had to get ready. Said she wanted him to help cook before dinner. I walked him to the door. We didn't kiss. When the door clicked shut, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the leftover takeout. I didn't cry. But I felt hollow. Sunday, I didn't hear from him. No text. No missed call. Nothing. I imagined him sitting across from her at dinner, eating pasta, maybe smiling. I imagined her making a toast, maybe thanking him. I imagined her hoping for something better in the year ahead. I didn't know who I was that day. Not his girlfriend. Not his friend. Just someone floating beside a life I didn't own. Around 9 p.m., he sent a text. "She cried at dinner. Told me she misses me. Said things feel cold between us." I stared at the message, heart thudding. I replied, "What did you say?" He answered, "I told her I feel disconnected. That I'm not sure what we are anymore." I waited. Then typed, "Do you still want to leave?" He took 10 minutes to respond. "Yes. But I feel like I'm tearing two lives apart." I didn't reply. Monday morning, he called. "Can I come see you tonight? I need to talk." We met at a different hotel. Room 308. He didn't want to risk being seen again at our usual spot. He looked drained. Eyes heavy. Voice low. "She's broken," he said. I saw it in her face. "I'm broken too," I said softly. He sat beside me, and didn't speak for a while. Then whispered, "I wish I met you first." That line stayed with me. Like it would have fixed everything. But real life isn't that simple. We talked for hours. About guilt. About love. About how someone can mean everything and still come second. Before leaving, he said, France is still the plan. But I need to end this the right way. I nodded. Just don't forget what we're building. He touched my cheek. I couldn't if I tried. Still, I went home knowing something had shifted. Not the love, but the weight of it. Because birthdays aren't just celebrations. They're reminders. Of who we belong to. Of who's still waiting, and I was tired of waiting. Chapter 10. The goodbye that might be real. I didn't sleep the night before he made the decision. Mike said he'd talked to Emily that Sunday. Said it was time. Said he couldn't live the double life anymore. I believed him, but I was afraid too. We met early that morning in room 213, one last time before everything changed. The air was heavy. Neither of us spoke much. We just laid there, side by side, lost in thought. I love you, he said again. I know, I whispered. I love you too. We held each other tighter than usual, like we were clinging to the version of ourselves that finally believed this life might start. At noon, he left. I didn't follow. I sat in the room for hours after he was gone, watching the clock, staring at the walls, waiting for the message that would say I did it. It didn't come. That night, I got one text. She cried. I cried. I didn't do it. I stared at the screen. Numb. I didn't reply. The next morning, he called. I froze, he said. I saw her face. I saw all the years we built. I couldn't break it. Not yet. Not yet. I repeated, barely holding it together. I need more time. That was the last thing I wanted to hear. We'd had all the time. Every hotel weekend. Every lie told. Every plan is drawn. Time wasn't the problem, he tried to explain. Said she'd started noticing the change in him. Said she was trying now, talking more, touching his hand during dinner. He said it confused him. I still want you, he said. I still dream of France. But dreams aren't enough. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just said, then maybe this goodbye is real. He went quiet. I won't wait anymore, Mike, I said. I can't keep breathing through weekends and dying on weekdays. He sighed. So that's it. I think it has to be. The next few days felt hollow. No texts. No calls. Room 213 stayed empty. I went back once, alone, just to say goodbye to that space, to the version of me that believed something could grow there. I started deleting photos. Selling things. Making my own plans, quietly. France still called to me not as a shared dream, but as a way to start over. A week later, he sent one final message. I'll always love you. Maybe in another life, we get it right. I stared at it and didn't reply. Because love isn't about timing, it's about courage, and I needed mine more than I needed his.